Hey guys, Two Lovers here, and today this is just a demo of me practicing my aim on TRA aim. I seem to have a lot of videos like this, but I just wanted to make a commentary and I didn't really know what to put clips in the background because most of the other clips are being reserved for stuff like Two Lovers aimbot episode 200,000. So yeah. It's just some clips of me practicing my aim last night. I did like 100 headshots on these bots just for practice because practicing is always good. So a lot of people have in fact asked me like how to improve aim or what do I do to become better at aiming in Team Fortress. So this is basically it. Like once a week I try to sit down and spend an extended amount of time in TR Walkway, TR Rocket Shooting, TR Aim, just trying to get better at hit shots, body shots, whatever, scout hit scan. You don't notice that I do like silly things like moving my crosshair around rapidly. It's all about getting used to the mouse sensitivity. There are times where I move my mouse across the entire mouse pad, slide it up and down, shake it around a little bit, so that you get used to how much your mouse moves each time you move it. And it's all about developing a muscle memory. Things like these that allow you to become a better player, because it's important to know how much your character crosshair is going to move each time you swing your mouse. It really helps you in knowing how to judge distance between you and another person and how precise you can move it. So speaking of mouse sensitivity, getting used to your sensitivity and all is extremely important. Generally there's like 3 different phases, I guess, where you're just starting out, you're figuring out your sensitivity. That's one. That's usually when you mess around with your sensitivity, try to find one that suits you. And then the second one is getting used to your sensitivity, where you just play a lot on that specific sensitivity and then you get better at it. Then you develop your muscle memory for how much to swing, so that you know like if there's a scout in front of you and he strafes to the left, how much must you compensate by. It's mostly talking about Twitch aim, but of course you can use it for other things like strafing the players and such like that. There's also mastering your sensitivity, which is the point where you've done it so many times that you know how to move in a perfectly straight line horizontally across the map in the midst of combat very quickly, and that's usually when you destroy the most players as sniper. Unfortunately, as you can see by the large amount of times I miss the spy at long range, I'm not very good at this. In fact, long range is probably my weakness as sniper, because I like shoot close range all the time, play too much 2-4, and all the charging demo knights and scout try to come at me. Then I just scope in and do 150 damage then, and I get called hacker. It's a different set of sniping skills, so it's about long range, short range. Here I move my crosshair around a bit, just so that I can figure out what my sensitivity is doing at that time. You do also should note that depending on your FPS, your sensitivity can be rather different. So if your FPS is lower, your sensitivity might be slightly lower as well. So you do want to like open the console, and if you are practicing, maybe you could practice at limiting your FPS, because usually in training maps you get higher FPS. So you can use the FPS limiting in console to try and practice it out for yourself. Of course, you don't have to keep doing that unless your computer is at a constant 60, less than constant 60 all the time. So another thing to talk about is the different types of aim. Obviously, there's those that involve camping. You just sit there, scope, and wait for something to walk across your crosshair. That's more of prediction and anticipating that somebody would get there. Then there's strafing, pronunciation, where you use your A and D keys to move towards your target or replicate your target's movement so that you can make finer adjustments to your crosshair position without moving your mouse. While it doesn't really make that big of a difference as sniper because you move so slow into your scope, it still affects it somewhat, especially for super long distances. So I do recommend getting used to it. It's a massive and colossal help on Spy, and it's also useful on Scout E Scout, although I would not recommend versus a soldier because they can just shoot feats, get kills. So there's that. There's also twitch aiming, which most people try to do and then they fail, and then they're like, oh, this is FPS so hard, and like quit the game forever. So obviously it's probably considered one of the hardest things to do, and that's where practicing a sensitivity, as I mentioned earlier, comes in. Obviously you can, instead of like going to TR aim and whatnot, you can go play against real players in MG, but I'm too much of a coward to do that, so, and I'm not serious enough. So besides, if you've seen any MG games whatsoever, it's like you almost never end up in such a position in an actual game, like in a serious setting, 6v6, Highlander or whatever nonsense. You're not going to be randomly DMing one player one-on-one most of the time. You might as well just join a TM server, which there aren't really that many if you're living in Southeast Asia like I am. Yeah, of course, beyond just moving your crosshair left and right, there's also the other dimensions up and down, which you will need to get used to. It also makes a big difference on maps like Upward, where you're not always given a straight, flat, long sight line for it. It's just scope down and mow down everybody. So your horizontal and vertical movements both affect your aim a lot. And that's why you should also stand on top of these stairs in TRA, and in walkway there are also certain areas where you can stand to practice your horizontal and vertical movement together. So that's very important, aiming in 4 directions. Of course there's the depth thing when aiming, but that only really comes into play when you're using the loose cannon instead of man. So, well, I think there's a lot more to cover on these sort of things, but I'll just leave with a bunch more tips. If you're always struggling to focus on an enemy, it might be because your sensitivity is a little bit too high. So if you're like aiming and then you're finding your hands are cramping up because you have to move so precisely to get that crosshair onto the head, then you might want to consider lowering it a little bit. Not lowering it a lot unless you're using 0.5 inches or per 360, then maybe you want to increase it by a lot more. But of course, there's nothing wrong with having like 5 centimeters per 360, because there are people out there that are amazing at even with such high sensitivity. Obviously, I haven't really seen that much competitive players in Team Fortress use that kind of ridiculously high sensitivity on classes that are not like completely devoid of the principle of aiming. But it can work for you if you practice enough. On the other hand, if you feel like whenever you swing your mouse or you try to track your enemy and your enemy is always moving faster than you, then you might want to try making your mouse more sensitive or increasing your sensitivity. the best way to practice your sensitivity is probably by playing Sniper, Scout, and Revolver Spy, not just the actual backstabbing itself, because those quite simple regardless of sensitivity. But yeah, also Shotgun Heavy. Shotgun Heavy is pretty great to practice your sensitivity on, but other than that, I would not tell you. I guess Heavy is good for tracking in general, but not a very good class to play with because you got so much health to go, and you only really need to land a few shots. Unless you're like at super far range trying to out-snipe a sniper, which then what are you doing with that class? Anyway, I think that should be wrapping up what I want to say today, and I hope you guys found these tips helpful, and I'll see you guys next video.